I enjoy it on beans, I enjoy it on mac and cheese. There's just so many uses for it. You can now mix in other seasonings, other sauces if you want, but this right here, if you get a bite, there's some pork in it, some bark in it. So what is a pork butt? It's not the rear end of the pig, it's actually the top of the shoulder of the pig. And there's lots of different names actually for it out in the market and get really confusing. This one is simply called a bone-in pork shoulder butt, but then this one's labeled a pork Boston butt roast. What's the difference? There is no difference. They come from the same part of the pig. The word butt has a lot of different ways that it originates from. I think it comes from the New England settlers back in the day and how they stored it in barrels, which are called butts or something like that. But the pork butt is the best part for what we're doing as far as pulled pork. We've got a nice fat cap. That's what I'm looking for when I'm looking at it in the case at the grocery store. I'm seeing a lot of marbling on the edges, on the sides here in the muscles. There's a lot of different muscles as opposed to if you're used to cooking brisket or something else like that. It's only 2 muscles. Pork butt has a lot of different muscles. It's that front leg, that shoulder, that's really working and carrying a lot of the weight of the animal. So first, I'm gonna go ahead, get this out of the package. And this one has a nice bone in it, has that shoulder blade bone in it. Gives a little bit of flavor. It's gonna cook a little bit faster. If you can find boneless, I like boneless as well, just makes it a little bit easier for what we're doing. And what I'm doing right now is just getting to know the pork butt. I'm kind of spreading it out. It got real squeezed and scrunched up in that packaging. So I'm just kind of spreading it out and looking for any major loose flaps. I'm kind of feeling where is that bone. And what we're gonna do, and what you've probably never seen anybody do before, especially in a restaurant setting for pulled pork, is we're gonna cut this into smaller pieces, about 4 or 5 pieces. And the reason we do that is we get more bark, more flavor, more seasoning, and it's gonna cook a lot faster, so less time in the smoker. When I was coming up with this recipe, I kept hearing people brag about, ooh, the bark, I got lots of bark in my sandwich. Ooh, give me a piece with the bark. And I thought, well, how do we get more bark out of the pulled pork? Well, you create more surface area. And so all that takes is just cutting it into pieces. And so I've split it in half right now. And so I've got the bone right here on this side. So that's what we're gonna deal with next. And I've got this nice group of muscles right here. And it's just real simple. I'm just gonna cut it down, force right that. You can cut it even smaller if you like, but these kind of softball size shapes, cutting into quarters, is what works best for us because it allows it to get enough time on the smoker without drying out. You can see all that beautiful marbling, that webbing of the multiple muscles in there, the nice fat cap on top, but this is gonna cook up beautifully right there, give us a lot more surface area for bark, a lot more places for the heat to penetrate and cook faster. And so now we're gonna move on to this side that has the bone in it. And this takes a little bit more planning, a little bit more thinking. You can't just go through and hack your way through it. It is a pretty tough bone. And so what I'm doing, I'm just getting my fingers in there and I'm just kind of feeling where's that bone, where is it coming, where is it going. I like to cut this muscle that's sitting right on top of the bone right here and just cut that off. You can see this little seam of fat where it separates and just trim as much of that off as I can. So I'm gonna push that down and just small, shallow strokes, keeping my fingers out of the way. Remember, this is all gonna get pulled apart. It's not gonna be sliced nice and pretty like a brisket, so I'm not worried too much about it being perfectly even. So we have another piece. It's got some sharp corners on it. It's a little bit thinner, so it's gonna cook faster, so you wanna pay attention to that. But also, if some of this gets a little bit crispy, that's just gonna be more flavor once it's mixed into your pulled pork. There's really not a lot of worry you have to have with this. And so now I can really see kind of the angle of that bone. You got it comes out here, kind of goes at an angle right here. So I just like to use the tip of my knife, keep the handle up. And I'm just gonna try to separate it one way. It's just to kind of go up like this. Just making gentle, shallow strokes. And I feel like I've gotten past the bone. We're just to the meat and then just straight down. Boom. We got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 pieces right there. Now this is gonna give us a lot of room for seasoning, for bark development, smoke penetration. I like to season it with just salt and pepper. That's what we do at the restaurant. That's what my great-grandfather did. He wasn't cooking pulled pork. This is a relatively new menu item for us. We've been doing it for just a few years, but we still are cooking the Texas style way. When I was coming up with this recipe and I thought, we're gonna put pulled pork on the menu, it still has to represent Texas. We're not gonna try to replicate other areas of the country where it's mostly sauce, a lot of sugar, a lot of seasoning. This pulled pork has gotta stand on its own with salt, pepper, and smoke. And so that's all we're putting on it right here. You know, start with a nice hearty seasoning like salt and pepper. It's gonna stand up to the smoke. It's not gonna burn, it's not gonna get bitter. But then if you wanna experiment, add those powders, those herbs and things, and let them bloom with the hot meat right after it comes off the smoker. So that way you get the benefit of those herbs and spices and all the flavors they have to contribute without burning them, without wasting them. Just a nice even coat. Salt and pepper. Something that's not required, but an easy upgrade if you have the time, I like to do at home, is this fat cap. I like to help that render a little bit faster and get that nice kind of crunchy bits of fat. So I'm gonna score the top, which is basically just cutting like a checkerboard pattern in it. And so I'm just trying to go, you know, just into the meat, not go down through the fat. And then what we're doing is just creating more surface area, more places for that smoke to penetrate, more ways for that fat to render out and just become a beautiful pulled pork sandwich. Go on top of some beans, some mac and cheese. So we got some nice, beautiful pulled pork pieces ready for the smoker. So we cook ours at 275. That's what our smoker does. Every smoker is a little bit different. So if you're just getting started with your smoker, you're not sure about it, start at 225 and work up from there. You don't want it to burn. But remember, this meat is super hardy. It's really hard to mess up. You can burn it. It's got so much fat, so much sinew, so much connective tissue that you need to break down, you want to break down, that a little bit extra heat's not gonna hurt it, but low and slow is the way to go to get that beautiful, juicy flavor that you're looking for. This is a smoker my grandfather built in the late 1940s. Beautiful orange brick, heavy steel lids. The lids have gone through a few iterations, but the basic structure of these bricks is still the same that my grandfather built with his own two hands. So we've got that pulled pork in there at 275. That'll cook for we like to cook about 3 or 4 hours, and then we're gonna put it on top of a grate and catch all those juices so we can mix that back in once we're ready to pull. So here's another pork butt that finished off a little bit earlier today. This cooked for about 5 to 6 hours, but remember, anything barbecue, we're not cooking to time, we're cooking to temperature, or internal temperature. We got the internal temperature to about 200 degrees, and then we took it off, let it rest, wrapped nice and tight, and just get super soft and mushy, and just look at that payoff. This is the fat cap that we cross-hatched, and look at all that smoke penetration. The fat rendered out means it melted just the right amount, and we got a lot of flavor out of that. The fat's a little bit crispy, so much extra bark. All of this was just covered up. This was a section that was covered up that we cut right alongside that bone. And look, we've got that much more bark on this piece. We've got so much bark over on this piece. And so every single bite, no matter how you enjoy your pulled pork, whether it's a sandwich on top of something, is gonna have some really amazing bark, smoky flavor, salt, seasoning. There's not gonna be any part of the pork butt that's not gonna be flavorful because we cut that into pieces and we just dramatically increase the amount of flavor on this. So let's go ahead and start pulling it apart. I've got heat protective gloves underneath my nitrile gloves, and you know, if you did it right, all it takes is just a little bit of pressure. Oh my goodness. Look at that. I want to just take a minute and just take a look. You see, you got the bark right there, you got beautiful smoke ring, you got flavorful, juicy pork running right through there, and it should just turn to little strings. We're not gonna chop it up. So much beauty in this world is in variety and contrast, and it's no different in pulled pork when you get the juicy, soft, pillowy pork with the little bits of the flavorful bark. That's exactly what we're looking for. So what I like to do, you know, just have some fun with it. I like to use my hands. You know, sometimes you can use a scraper, but the best tool in the kitchen is your hands. When you have a chance to use that, use that. If there's any parts that are still feeling rubbery or not pulling apart, then that just means it needs some more time to cook and break down. So we've got all these pieces, we're just gonna pull apart, and I enjoy it on beans, I enjoy it on mac and cheese. There's just so many uses for it. You can now mix in other seasonings, other sauces if you want, but this right here, if you get a bite with some pork in it, some bark in it, that is Texas pulled pork done right. So if you want more Central Texas barbecue recipes, if you want to watch me chew more barbecue, no, I'm just kidding. Like, subscribe, let us know what recipes you want to know. Tell us your journey. Have you ever seen this done before on pulled pork? Has anybody else cutting their pulled pork into multiple pieces before they cook it? Let us know in the comments below. Love you guys. We'll see you next time.